Very good, thank you. I'm going to follow up on one of Senator Lee's questions that he asked you, Mr. McMullen, about the price cut promises and the like. What is the timetable for implementing the price cuts if this merger will be approved, and who will analyze whether or not you meet that commitment?
It will start day one. Obviously, we're not able to do any of the analysis before we merge because of the information that's involved, but it will start immediately on day one, and we would expect that the $500 million to be over a 4-year time horizon as well.
Okay, so, I think one of the reasons you see some cynicism up here about these price reductions is that we've seen increasing consolidation in the grocery market, and we've seen, as you know, consumers for a variety of factors, but we believe one of them is consolidation. If you look at the history of this country and what happens when you have consolidated markets, is consolidation. With reduced competition, even more reduced competition in the grocery store market, won't Kroger feel less competitive pressure to keep prices low? And we're basing this in part on the comment that Senator Lee repeated, where you said that with regard to inflation, you've been very comfortable with our ability to pass on the increases that we've seen at this point. And your operating profit increased from $2.8 billion in 2020 to $3.5 billion in 2021. That's a 25% jump. And so that is why you're sensing some cynicism about this idea about bringing prices down when we have even less competition. So do you want to respond to that?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question and the directness of the question as well. In terms of part of what I want to share is the things that we've done in the past several years. One of the things in retail, you have to reinvent yourself every 10 to 12 years because you have new competitors come in. And at one point that was Walmart, at another point that was Costco, at one point that's Amazon. And that's just part of the industry. Part of that reinvention is always being making sure the customer gets a better value for their money. And the customer defines value as a combination of price and quality and the service and friendliness of we call employees associates. And about 20 years when we embarked upon that strategy where we fundamentally changed how we went to market, it's been incredibly successful because we've been able to increase the number of households that are loyal to us, that come to us and shop every day. And we do that by lowering their pricing every day. Our gross profit rate, as I mentioned before, is down over 3% over that period of time. And
okay, but I was asking you about going forward, because I have to get on to some other questions. If you think that having less competition is going to create pressure on you to reduce prices.
Yeah, I just don't see less competition going forward. And I believe, it's easy for a customer to take a right turn or a left turn. And we will continue to invest in pricing because it's incredibly important to our customer. We'll also invest in service and fresh product.
Well, in your own published report, if I could just get a little more focused here, that's the Kroger Fact Book for 2021. It lists 49 major markets where you have 9 or more stores in a city, and it says that you have the number 1 or 2 market share in 41 of the 49 markets already today, and that's without even accounting for the Albertsons stores. Looking just at full-service grocery stores for a moment, not gas station stores, not ones where you can just pick up a few things, but stores that have produce, that have fish, that have butchers. What is your market share today? And do you think, just as you've done here with your own fact book, do you think that you should be considering market share on a market-by-market basis instead of a nationwide basis?
We would look at market share in both both areas, and we always have, because from a local basis, looking at market share, the infrastructure that from a warehouse, some of the other parts are incredibly important to create efficiency. So we would always look at market share from both perspectives, and when we're talking to our board at our business plan meeting, we would be looking at it as well.
I'm going to ask Mr. Sharma and Professor Sweeting about this. When you look at market share, should we look at shares of revenue nationwide or a market-by-market basis when it comes to a competitive analysis? Is it where you live and where you shop, or is it, let's look at the whole nation?
Because consumers choose their grocery store from what's available to them locally, the fundamental building block of any competitive analysis is going to be kind of local market structure and local market shares.
Mr. Sharma?
Let me just zoom out and say, make an analogy here. Say, we compete with China as a country, and that's why we probably passed the CHIPS Act. We can also argue you compete with Ecuador or Portugal, and those are competitors in some sense, but that's not what drives policy. And I believe a similar thing is true of companies. You got to look at who is imposing pricing constraint and who. And as you mentioned, in the same 2021 fact book, Kroger lists Albertsons as one of its main competitors in many of these markets in over 800 stores. So I think that should be an important focus. Those main markets should be an important focus of competition.
Mr. Needler, you've done well. You're a strong competitor out there, up against a lot with these chain stores. When you look at your market position, do you look at it at a national level or in your own market?
Yeah, look, so we think in terms of, if you were to look at this in terms of two lenses, pricing and buying, market share for us, we think customer to customer, church to church, corner to corner. How many Little League teams have we been able to sponsor this year? But so I think when you break down market share, the pricing power comes through a local basis, but when you look at it on a national basis, that's where they really accelerate their buyer power on the CPGs. So when they're that big, they become a very big market concern for CPGs. And you look at like some of these major publicly traded companies that list in their public filings, a big risk is concentration of customers, where if you say, pick XYZ brand is only 0.5% of Walmart sales, but 40% of the CPG sales, who's got that power, right? So, creating this environment where they have such a large national basis, that's where the market share becomes relevant from a buying perspective, but not necessarily on a consumer basis.
Thank you, Mr. Needler, for your practical advice. Last question, Mr. Shankaran. When Albertsons brought Safeway, we talked about that. It divested more than 150 stores. We talked about the kind of tragic end of that with the company that bought them facing bankruptcy. With the recent, or in bankruptcy, a lot of the stores failed. With that recent history of failed divestitures, why should we have faith that divesting stores would work now?
Senator, the divestitures are in those markets where some others have mentioned, the witnesses have mentioned that there is some overlap. There's two ways we're planning this. One is divestitures that would go to credible buyers, once again determined by the FTC, qualified buyers who have the capacity and capability to take these stores and add to their franchise. And second, we have also conceptualized the notion of a SpinCo. The SpinCo will be owned by the current shareholders of Albertsons companies, the current board of the Albertsons companies. It'll have equity value, and the SpinCo and this is a group of leaders that have experience in having started with a 192 chain store in the past and built it to the company we are today.
Okay, very good. We're going next to Senator Padilla, then to Senator Cotton, I believe. So, and we also, Senator Hawley is here as well as Senator Blackburn. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we've heard today, Kroger and Albertsons